So if you're thinking about moving to Olympia, Washington, people always ask us, they have this misconception that all it does is rain here. So we're gonna talk about the weather, everything you need to know month to month, and actually what occurs here because we have lived here our whole lives. So we have this 40-year history of what actually happens in Olympia, Washington.
So a lot of people think that we're the rainiest state in the nation, which we're not, which kind of blew my mind. I didn't know that. Also, Seattle's 32nd for cities, which is just north of us. So I'm like, I thought we would be like third.
Yeah, no, it's not even close to the most amount of rainfall in the US. It's actually Hawaii. So we are in the top 10 though, for how often, how many days it actually does rain or snow.
Yeah, so it's just we don't rain as hard. When it does rain, we rain just as much, or just as often, just not as much.
So let's talk about what do the seasons look like here? Because we do have, in this area, right, on the west side of the mountains, we do have 4 seasons traditionally. Like they show up because for a period of time I lived on the other side of the mountains and we didn't have 4 seasons there. It was kind of like we had 2, you know?
Yeah, if you're not from here, the mountains divide the state. And so you've got the water side, the west side, which is really, really more green and very much more wet. And then over on the other side of the mountains, it's kind of more like a deserty feel. It's rocky.
It's very moderate, right, on our side of the mountains. And it's also very nice during the summer. It's amazing here during the summer months. Most people don't know that. In fact, people move here and they say, you know, Seattle and Olympia and wherever, right? This side of the mountains has the most beautiful summers.
Yeah, because it's green. It's not all like dried out and crusty. It's like really, really pretty. And then it's warm and it's not like so hot you're gonna die. Like a lot of states, you're like, it's 112 degrees outside. And we're like, it's like 85. It's kind of great.
Yeah. And we have very few days over, say, 90 degrees. So it's not super hot, like you said. So we have this just amazing weather environment during the summer. So we're talking about specifically from about June until about the September range, right? So that's a lot of months of the year where it's just great weather.
Yeah, and then the rest of the year, it's cold.
Cold?
Cold to me.
Cold to you. I don't think people in Minnesota think it's cold here.
No, and I was saying we should have brought all of our rain boots and lined them up on the counter here, because how many pairs do you have? Weatherproof shoes. Oh my gosh, I have like 20 weather-resistant shoes.
Yeah. So let's talk about actually what the months look like. All right, so let's start with, we talked about the summer. We talked about the summer being nice. So when does the weather transition? What month?
October.
100%.
Yeah,
yes.
like late October. Sometimes we get all the way up to Halloween. Sometimes it's decently nice. This year, they poured down rain and got cold. On the 31st, it was like the light switch.
Yep.
There you go, it's fall.
So what we see is torrential downpours and storms coming through. That also brings windstorms.
Yep, we lost power already once this year, and it's early November, so yeah, it's hard fast.
The power goes out. Sometimes we see these little sort of tornado formations, although we don't really have tornadoes here, but you have a story about Lacey, Washington, right? Close to Olympia.
Yeah, all the trees blew down, all down 2 of our major roads, just everything.
Yeah, like there was literally a mini tornado in Lacey not too many years ago. So rainstorms, torrential downpours, lots of rain and storms, and then that kind of lasts until January, right? And then it starts to get cold. And so how many days are we talking about where it's like under freezing? It's not.
We rarely get a white Christmas. All the kids pray for it. We all talk about it as if it's going to happen, and it usually rains on Christmas. And then after that, we get snow sometime between mid-January and before March, like a couple times, but.
It kind of depends on if it's a La Nina or an El Nino year. That has a massive impact on whether or not we get snow and how much rain we get during that period of time. So we're talking about like October until maybe February. Typically, if we're gonna get snow, it might sneak in and it might be November, December, like 1, 2, 3 day stretches where we have like the thread of snow. And then what happens is we get a couple wet inches and then it's gone by 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, the real snow hits in February. And then if we get good snow that year, then it can be a good foot or so for maybe up to 10 days.
So when does the weather change? We're talking about the springtime and how terrible it is because it's very gray.
We get to go through another little stormy season, usually in March, where you could lose power again. You know, not every year, but it happens pretty often where like you have like a windstorm come. It's like, oh, the weather's changing. We're about to get warm now, so the wind's coming again. So you just have to know that depending on where you're gonna live, you may want to invest in a generator.
Yeah, we'll get slammed off the coast with some storm that just kind of violently like comes through and has rain, torrential downpours, and wind, and it's here and then it's gone. But it shows up in a pretty, violent way. It's not a monsoon or a hurricane or anything, but it feels like one when you're in it. So that's kind of the environment in, say, March, maybe April.
It kind of chills out a little bit in April, and then May, we usually get some heat. Like there's almost every year, there's like a weird 3-day weekend where we're all like, what is this? 85.
It's actually, yeah, but you skip the worst part, okay? I've had people come to Washington and then actually move back out of Washington because it will literally be cloudy and gray. Sometimes it feels like from October all the way to May, but really there's some nice breaks in between where it's really kind of cold and clear, right? When the clouds aren't here and when it's not gray, then it gets cold. But other than that, it stays gray for a lot of days of those months. And when you start stacking those on top of each other, it feels like, oh my God, I need to take a vacation.
Try to take a vacation somewhere between February and April because you start to lose your marbles a little bit from lack of sunshine.
Yeah, and people in Washington should absolutely supplement with vitamin D because we don't see the sun that much, and you should go on walks when it is sunny so you can get some vitamin D. Seasonal affective disorder is actually a thing here, and I'm sure it is up in Alaska and those types of places.
Yes, we're far enough north to where the whole daylight thing shifts and you don't get enough daylight hours either in the winter. So between the gray skies and the time shift, it's definitely a thing.
Yeah, people go to bed much earlier during those months of the year. The summer actually arrives. It takes until about the end of June, early July.
4th of July. That's what we usually say. The summer here starts on the 4th of July.
Yeah.
And some years and lately there have been more years where it's a little like a week or two before that.
Yeah.
But most years it's right around the 4th.
Yeah, you do have to earn it. You have to wait for it.
Yeah, or you just go out on the 4th of July and you're cold and it's fine. You're just outside.
The hot weather, when does the hot weather actually set in and how many days do we get above 90?
Mid-July, I would say we start to get usually some hot weather, and it does get over 100 here sometimes. I've seen 110.
Yeah, heat bubble.
Yeah, definitely. But not over 90.
No. Do we need to see here?
Maybe 3 weeks total out of the whole year.
Yes.
That would be my best guess.
It has trended warmer, I can tell you. When I first started in real estate many years ago, it was like 1 out of 5 houses had AC, and now maybe it's 1 out of 3. And so it's trending warmer, it seems, in Washington. And so, but just know if you're coming from another part of the country and you move into a house and it doesn't have an air conditioner, that is very normal.
Yep.
Like a lot of houses here don't have AC.
New home builders are starting to put AC in as a standard feature, but I also think partially that is just the heat pump being more of a normal thing and a utility that people expect to have. So I don't know that it's necessarily like a necessary AC.
So how you get around that, I can tell you living here without AC for most of my life, actually. We had kids, and then when the kids were babies, we said, we gotta get AC because the kids' backs are sweaty when they're sleeping in their crib and whatever. So what people do to get around that is in Washington, if it's around 80, you can wait until it gets dark, which is usually 8, 9 p.m. and you can open up the window, maybe even put the fan in the window and get the cold air to come in. So you don't necessarily need an AC unit unless if you are completely used to having a perfect climate in your home, you will want AC for sure, but people around here just kind of deal with it. So, but if it does get above 90, that's when you don't have that option anymore because it's not gonna cool off enough.
That's when you hang out with your friends that have AC.
Yeah, exactly. It's not gonna cool off enough to where you can put the fan in the window because it's not gonna even get cold outside until midnight. And if you go to sleep early like I do, then now you can't even deal with that.
Yeah, and that inverted time zone thing is true too. Like it stays light way longer. So you have the heat coming in your windows longer than most parts of the country anyway. So it's like, oh yeah, it doesn't get dark until 9:45.
Yeah.
The heat's still coming through.
Yep. So AC is not a big thing around here, but if you can get it, you should, because we do have 10, 11 days, somewhere in there, of days above 90 degrees, very rarely above 100. We might catch 100 degrees maybe 3, 4 days annually, and that's it. And everybody's freaking out. They're running to Home Depot and they're buying the air conditioners that they can put in their windows. And there's always a run of ACs purchases going on.
And the utility bills go up like crazy.
Yes, they do. Yeah. All right, so that almost brings us full loop. We're into August. August is hot.
Yes.
August is sunny. People take vacations around here. It's when we have the slowest kind of domestic like activity going on. There's a lot of outdoor events, but like people are taking time off work and going camping and all the things, because this is when truly, if you had to plan a wedding or an event outside, you always pick August in Washington, because
It's beautiful.
it's almost guaranteed that it will be nice. And I had our wedding on the 31st of July, and at our rehearsal dinner the night before, we had crazy torrential downpours and storms. So it is not.
It is
not-
Washington. You can plan all day long and it's still possible that you'll have rain.
Exactly, it is not guaranteed. That is my point for sure. So, all right, that brings us full circle. September, now we're back to where we started from. When does it get kind of bad again?
Not until October. So September is kind of like our third month of summer, really. Like it's just like a transitional month, but it's usually in the 80s. It's really nice. It's one of the prettier months of the year. So kids go back to school, but everybody's still wearing their shorts.
Yep. So that brings us full loop. Now you know 100% more than anybody else about the weather, coming from two people who've lived here for 40 plus years. Be sure to check out our channel if you're moving to Washington and you want more information on neighborhoods or anything when it comes to relocating. So be sure to check it out, and do reach out if you do need some help.